Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Cinnamon Stitches. I am your yarn host Jennifer, and today we have a tutorial for a hat. This is a scrap hat, okay? I used scrap balls of yarn that I had laying around for a while. Made this one, which is made out of Urban Chic from Hobby Lobby. I paid $1.37 for this yarn. This is in the colorway Caribbean Vibes. I actually have several balls of this and I had no idea what to do with it because I didn't think I would love it as much as I did. And this is the first version of the hat. I'm going to recommend two types of yarn to use with this. If you have a self-striping yarn, this is the look you're going to get. But for the second hat, for the tutorial, I actually pulled out big twist value in the color Witch's Potion, which is given Franken vibes all day long. And if you know Cinnamon Stitches, I love Frankenstein. So I'm very happy with my Franken hat. And I'm probably going to wear it for trick-or-treating. So I used, I'm going to say, over a half a ball of both of these for the hat. The Franken hat that I used for the tutorial with the big twist is a bigger version of the hat. I made it longer. I added extra rows. I am going to put my notes for the pattern. It is not a complete pattern. It is my notes on how to recreate the hat. I'm going to put it in the description box below for you guys so you can follow along if you want. For this hat, I did, because there's a start and then there's a setup of granny stitches, and then this is spiked granny. I did from rows 9 to 23 on this hat for the spiked granny, but on this one I made it longer so that it fit over my ponytail, and I did 25 rows 9 to 25 for the longer version of the hat. I explain in detail in lots of different points in the video on how to alter the hat to make it smaller, wider, longer, how to adjust the brim. I give you lots of tips and tricks in the tutorial of how to change up the hat. So this is what it looks like with a self-striping yarn. This is not quite a self-striping yarn. It's stripy, but it's micro stripes. So what we got instead was kind of an argyle look, which I love the way this looks. And then we had a little bit of pooling on the back, which kind of looks like a lizard. So I'm not mad either way. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you what this hat looks like on my head. And I left room for my ponytail back here, and this one is a little bit longer. I prefer this length more than this length personally, but this is a beautiful hat. So this is what it will look like with a variegated yarn. This is what it will look like with a self-striping yarn. Use what you have. If you make it with just one solid color, it will also be beautiful. I also say in the video you can use scrap balls and create your own self-striping effect. And so let's get down to the tutorial. What you need is a ball of yarn. I'm going to say, just to be safe, make sure you have about 80 grams of yarn or a 100 gram ball or the equivalent of that in balls, okay? I used a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook for this one, and I used a mixture of a 4.5 and a 5 millimeter crochet hook on this hat because this one was coming out a little small and I have a really large head. But I'm going to suggest if you have a normal size head or a small head, use 4.5 millimeter. If you have a bigger head and it's coming out too small, just switch to a 5 millimeter and call it a day. So there's what our hat looks like from all the different views. Now we got a lizard on our head. I also tell you how to make the brim longer if you want to roll it up. That's an option you can do, okay? So let's get down to it. One ball of yarn, 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. This hat took me about 2 hours to make, start to finish. Might take you 4 hours, but it'll be a good time we're spending together. Now with that, let's go down to the table and make a crocheted hat. Okay, so to get started, I have a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook, and I have what I'm hoping is going to be a self-striping yarn, because what works best with this hat is something that has stripes, okay? A lot of cake yarns would work for this. Just keep in mind that if a cake yarn has too thick of a stripe, it's not going to look good. You need kind of thin stripes. So a thin striped variegated yarn will work best. What I used for the blue hat is, which I may have already shown you, is the Urban Chic from Hobby Lobby. Medium worsted weight 4 yarn. Trying to untangle so we can get started. Now this is not going to be exact because it looks like it's not even stripes, but the Urban Chic wasn't either. So the Urban Chic, as I'm throwing stuff on the floor, had smaller parts of purple and pink where they lined up in one row, and then bigger parts of the yellow. So I think it will work out no matter what. I don't know why there's a tangle in my yarn right here. We're gonna have to cut that because I don't feel like fighting that right now, and it will be fine. All right, to start this hat, we have a 4-weight yarn, 4.5mm crochet hook. If you are making this for a smaller head, if you have a smaller head, I have a large head, so hat's probably going to be on the big side. Go down to a 4mm crochet hook. If you're making it for somebody who's like 22 or less inches head, or maybe even 20-inch head. My head is 24 inches. You can also take out any of the rows to make the hat smaller. The increase rows, so if you take out row 4 of this pattern, go ahead and write that down. If I take out row 4, it will be a smaller hat for a smaller person, like teenage or tweenie. All right, so we're going to start off with a magic circle. Don't be scared if it's a magic circle. You can do this. Make sure you have a decent sized tail here. Fold it around your finger like it's an awareness ribbon. Okay, so like, you know, AIDS awareness, breast cancer awareness. You fold it so the tail's on the back side, underneath. Pinch it at the X. Go in from the top and grab the longer loop and pull up. And then chain 1, and you have created a magic circle. It's really that easy, okay? Now, I'm only doing a chain 1, and then we're going to wrap it. We're going to put a double crochet over both of the loops. So the loop that's twisted around and the circle, okay? Crochet around both of those loops and make a double crochet. We're going to make 10 double crochet total. So that was 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We need 10 double crochets. Grab your tail, pull it tight as you can get it without breaking the yarn, okay? You want the hole to be closed. Now what we're going to do here is going to be weird, and you might not like it. We're going to crochet around that very first post of the double crochet that we created, or the chain, whatever's right here, okay? You're going to wrap your yarn to make a double crochet. You're going to go in the side of the stitch. This is going to help us to work in the spiral instead of having a seam. We're going to put 2 double crochet around that post on the side here, okay? And I'm going right over the top of that tail, right? And what you want to do is you want to have a stitch marker handy. Any old stitch marker will do, but since this is a Halloween color, I'm going to open these because I bought them and never used them. Alright, let's do the green spider web. You need a stitch marker. I don't care if it's a bobby pin, a safety pin, I don't care what you have that will work as a stitch marker, but find something that works as a stitch marker. Alright, so in the very first double crochet right here on the top, you're going to put a double crochet. You're going to actually put 2 double crochet in there, but for now just put 1 double crochet and put your stitch marker in the top of that stitch. That's the first stitch of the row, okay? So for this row we're going to put 2 double crochet in every stitch, including the 2 that went around the post. So at the end of this row you should have 24 double crochet. If you are short a double crochet, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to count your stitches. I sure ain't. And it's not going to make a difference if you're off a stitch or 2. You could even be off 3 stitches. It's not going to make a huge difference. It's a hat. So we're just putting 2 double crochet in every stitch all the way around back to the stitch marker. All the way around. This is going to be a fun Halloween hat. And since the weather has been so cold here, I predict we're going to have a chilly Halloween night. Now we'll have a new hat to wear to go trick-or-treating with Little Man. So I can tell right off the bat, this yarn is not going to be super self-striping. It's going to have little bits and bobs of color. So it's not going to be as visually stimulating as the blue hat. But it will still work because we're still going to have little pops of color. And it will be fine. Oops, got caught on there. So 2 in every stitch, all the way back to the stitch marker. Alright, there you have it. That's what it should look like. Oh, my stitch marker broke. Freaking Hobie. Let's see if I can fix that. That's going to irritate me. That makes me upset. This is why I buy my stitch markers for my daughter, because she don't let this crap happen. I might have to have her come and squeeze that. I'm going to squeeze it with my teeth. Don't be mad at me. Alright. Hopefully that doesn't come off again. Since we know my next stitch was the stitch marker stitch, we're going to put 2 single crochets. Put one, or not single, double, put double, not single. Double crochet in the first stitch. Stitch marker goes back in, put another double crochet. Now for this round, we're going to do 2 double crochet, so an increase, and then a double crochet, and then an increase, and then a double crochet all the way around. An increase is 2 double crochets in the same stitch, and then single, or not single. This entire hat is made with double crochets until the brim. If I accidentally say single, it's a double. So 2 double crochets in the increase, and then a double crochet in the next, all the way around. 2 double crochets, and then just a regular double crochet, and then an increase. Oh, see, this green stripe is a pretty good size, so I have hopes for this hat. As we listen to the musical stylings of My Wind Chime. Oops. I need to slow down. I'm slipping out of my stitches repeatedly. Got a busy day planned today. So I'm trying to get this at least partially started, this tutorial, so I can go do the things that need to be done. So remember, we're just doing an increase and then a double crochet in the next. And then an increase, and then a double crochet in the next. And apparently, nope, I'm perfectly on. I was going to say I'm off a stitch, but I wasn't, because that was the right stitch. Alright, so this next row, once again, we're going to remove our stitch marker because we're at the beginning of the row. I'm going to start the row with an increase, which is 2 double crochet in the same stitch. Put our stitch marker back in the first of those 2 stitches. And then we're going to put a double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So a double crochet in the next stitch and a double crochet in the next stitch. And then an increase. And we're going to repeat that all the way around. So we're going to do 2 double crochet, a double crochet in the next, a double crochet in the next, and then an increase, which is 2 double crochet. I like the way this yarn is patterning. That's kind of cool. A little funky. It's funky fresh. Double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then an increase. And I need to pull more yarn out of the center of the ball. I will put the pattern notes in the description box below in case you want to follow along with actual words. This will help you get used to learning how to read a pattern if you don't know how to read a pattern. And I'm just going to do a shorthand so you can follow along with my notes. You can even write them down if you want. Just follow along with the pattern. Oops. Slow down, Jen. You're crocheting too fast. Come on. There we go. Sometimes I get in a competition with myself to see how fast I can crochet, and then I end up screwing everything up because I keep sliding out of my stitches. My nose is whistling. You guys hear it? I'm trying to play you a tune. Alright, and then I definitely messed up somewhere because I shouldn't have ended the row in an increase, but here we are. And it will be fine. Like I said, I don't count stitches and you shouldn't either. Not with a simple hat pattern. Alright, what row was that? 1, 2, 3, 4. That was row 4. Alright. This next row is, we're going to change up our stitches. It's technically still an increase row. But what we're going to do is we're going to change, we're going to do a granny shell. Now what a granny shell is, we're going to skip a stitch here. Skip the very first stitch and we're going to put 3 double crochet in the next stitch. 1, 2, and 3. Put our stitch marker in between where the granny shell is, okay? So right where that empty space is, put your stitch marker there. That's the beginning of the row. So we skipped 1 and put a granny shell. Now we're going to skip 1 and put a granny shell. And we're going to do that all the way around. So 3 double crochet in the same stitch. This is an increase row. Oh, come on. I got a knot. You know what? We're just going to work with it. All the way around. Skip 1. Increase. Or not an increase. A granny stitch. 3 double crochet in the same stitch. Skip 1, granny shell. Skip 1, granny shell. Now if you want to make this a smaller hat, you can skip that last row of increases, or you can, instead of skipping 1 here, you skip 2 and put the granny shell. It will make a smaller hat. There are 2 options you have to make this a smaller hat for a smaller head. Okay. Like I said, I got a big head. My hats tend to be on the big side. But doing the skip 1 and then the granny shell is still increasing. We're still going in the round. We're still making the hat bigger, wider. And even if you skip 2 stitches and do the granny shell, it's going to be a decent sized hat for a smaller person. We're just skipping a stitch and putting a granny shell. Oops, 3 double crochet in the same stitch. And we're going to do a couple of rows of granny shells. And then we're going to move into what I'm going to call the spike granny. It's a spiked granny stitch. Continuing on. Skip a stitch, granny shell, skip a stitch, granny shell. We're almost to the end of the row. Keep going, keep going. And then I'm going to tell you how to do the next, let's see, 3 rows after this. But I'm not going to film that because you don't need to watch me do the next 3 rows. The next 3 rows are the same. So rows 6, 7, and 8 will all be the same. Alright. So now we have 2 stitches left, which is going to be fine. We're going to skip the last 2 stitches and go into the very first stitch where our stitch marker was and put a granny shell. I know, it's not rocket science, but here we are. Put the stitch marker, if I can grab it, we're going to go into the next stitch and put our double crochet. We're going to move our stitch marker this way. Okay, now this is going to be row 6. Starting here, going around will be row 6. Row 6, row 7, and row 8 are going to be you just granny shelling in the round like this. Every time you see that space between the granny shells, you put 3 double crochet. That's all you're going to do for the next 3 rows. It's that simple. 3 double crochets, skip the shell, go to the next space in between, 3 double crochet granny shell. Like I said, you're going to repeat that for row 6, 7, and 8. And I will come back at the end of row 8 and show you how to start row 9. And then rows 9 through 23 are all a repeat. So that should not be difficult at all. And it's just a slight alteration on what we're doing right now. It's minor. It's so easy, you're not even going to believe it. I will meet you at the end of row 8. That's what it should look like. So just keep the next row, granny shell in between. The next row after that. Be right back. Alright, we made it to the end of the 9th round. Not the 9th, that was the 8th round. It should be curling towards you. And what you need to keep in mind when you're working in the round, if it's curling towards you, that's a good thing, but the side that's facing you when you're crocheting is the correct side, it's the right side. So you want to like fold that back down just a little bit. That's what your hat should look like currently. No, it's nothing spectacular, but that's where we're at. Okay. I want to compare this to the other one because I feel like it's coming out a little bit smaller. No, it's not. It's right on. Alright. So I did the math correctly. Alright, now, this next, we got to the stitch marker, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to put the stitch marker in again and we're going to leave it there. Okay, we are. So what we're going to do is, this is the start of the 9th row. We're going to do rows 9 to 23. You can do 9 to 20. You can do 9 to 27. Depending on how long you want this hat to hit on your head, depending on who you're making this for, okay? The amount of rows is not as important as how it fits the person's head, okay? So for this next stitch, we're going to change it up and we're just doing a spiked granny, and it's just like the granny with one exception. We're going to still go into the same hole and do a double crochet. For the second double crochet, we're going to go down here into this stitch. So we're going to skip this row and go down here into the center stitch right there and put a double crochet. Just like that. And then we're going to squeeze over into the space over here and put another double crochet. It's called a spiked granny. Okay. We're going to put our stitch marker back right here. That will signify the start of row 9. In case you want to continue counting, leave that stitch marker there and then just count up. This is row 9, this is row 10, this is row 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, etc., 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 etc. Okay. Now, counting the rows is not as important as length, how long you need it to be. So keep that in mind. So every time you see the space where you're going to put a granny shell, we're just going to do a spiked granny. So double crochet, double crochet into the exposed stitch of the row previous, and then you see this is the previous row. Go in between the purple and the white and put another double crochet. All it is doing is closing the stitches so there's not holes. That's all that we're doing. We're going to continue doing that. Put a double crochet into the previous stitch or the previous row, and then double crochet back up here at this row. So you're going to do double crochet up here, double crochet in the stitch down here, and then double crochet back up here. And you're just going to continue doing this in the round until the hat is the length you want it. I'm aiming for 23 rows. This is the 9th row. We're at the 23, maybe the 25 mark. I don't know. I'm just going to go until I feel like it's long enough. Because the blue hat, I'm going to be honest with you, this is a little short for my head. I would actually like probably another 2 inches on here because I often wear a ponytail and I need the extra headroom. So just continue this row in the round until you get a good length. And we're still going to add a brim. So, and the brim can be as thick or as thin as you want it. This is 2 rows of half double and a row of double crochet. But again, you can do this row as thick, as thin as you want it to be. I stopped at this point because the blue ran out and I kind of wanted the blue to be on the top and the bottom. It's the only reason I stopped making the brim longer, or I would have kept going with the brim. So this hat is completely customizable to whatever size you want to make it. You just got to make a few little adjustments. So continue working the spiked granny. I'll show you one more time. Double crochet in the space here where we normally put the granny shell. Put a double crochet in the stitch below here from the previous row, and then move your 3rd double crochet back up around the top row. Now, of course, if you wanted to and you didn't feel like doing all of that, you could just put all 3 stitches in the previous row and it will look like this. It would just be a slight difference in the way the stitch, and I mean ever so slightly. If you don't want to do that, see the slight difference where there's like a spike here and this is like pulling the whole stitch up. It will give you a thicker fabric in the long run. I would rather do it the way I'm doing it, but that's another alternative that you have if you don't want to do this version of the spike. Alright guys, I'm going to leave you to your own devices, and we'll be back at the end of row 23 or 25, somewhere along those lines, because like I said, I did want to make this longer. And actually, I think row 23 actually makes it longer anyway, if I remember the math, because I wrote this pattern last night. If I recall, the 23rd row that I put was actually a couple rows longer than the original hat. But I still think maybe we might go to 25. I don't know. It doesn't really matter because you're going to make it to fit your head. I'm going to make it to fit my head. Alright guys, spiked granny in the round. Just keep going round and round and round doing the spike until you get to the length. You want it to be just shy of how you want your hat. So think if you put this on your head and it fits real nice, the point you stop the spiked granny shell should hit just about the top of your ear or mid-ear, and then that will still give you room to make an 1 or 2 inch brim. Okay, so another little tip for you. I will be back when we hit the length that we want. Just as predicted, I did 25 rows because I also went up a hook size partway through because the hook was the hat was feeling a little snug on my big giant head, so it might work out perfectly for your head, but I went up to a 5mm about this far down. So there's that. Just wanted to let you guys know what was happening there. Right, so now I need to remember what I did because this is where we change it up. Alright, so what we're going to do here is for the granny shells here, we're going to skip the first stitch here And we're going to work into the second stitch, and we're going to do a half double crochet because this is the brim. We've done 25 full rows of the spiked granny, or 23, or whatever your number is. I'm just going to do a half double there, okay? So we skip that first stitch, and I put a half double in the next one, a half double in the next one, and then I'm going to do the spike stitch here. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to go in the lower, not this level, but this lower one, just like we were doing for the granny, and do a half double, okay? Then we're going to skip the next stitch. We're going to go into the second, so the middle stitch of the granny shell. So this is a granny. We're going to skip the first stitch and go into the second one, okay, and do a half double. Go into the third and do a half double. And then go in where the space is and do a spike stitch, a spike half double. And we should probably move our stitch marker up where we started this row, right there, half double. Click that closed. All right. We're going to continue this around, and we're going to go till we reach that stitch marker again. So skip this first stitch. You guys see that? This is the granny shell. There's 1, 2, 3. Okay, skip this first stitch here and go into the second one and do a half double. Go into the second one right there and do a half double. And then do the spike stitch where the hole is, where the gap is. Here, skip this one, go into the next one. Go into the last one. Now we're back at the hole, so do a spike stitch. It's a half double spike stitch. So instead of the double crochet spike stitch, which we were doing, we're doing a half double crochet spike stitch. Yarn over, go row below, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 of those. Not difficult, just a little slight variation. This is where we are creating the brim of the hat. And of course the brim can be as long, as wide as you want it to be. If you want your brim to fold up, make the brim extra long. It's your hat. If you want it to be extra slouchy, make the brim longer. There's a million ways you can make this hat customized to your own liking or your own tastes or your own size. We're going to continue this until we get back to that stitch marker. And we're going to listen to my wrist pop, like snap, crackle, and pop. Now, of course, now it's going to stop now that I called it out. It was popping real good there for a minute. It was, every time I turned it was crack, crack, crack. It's kind of gross, but no, there it goes. It popped again. Yep, she's back to popping again. Does anybody else's wrist pop like that, or is it just a Jen thing? It comes from doing too much crochet for too many years. That's the problem. There was a good clip there where I was crocheting, felt like around the clock. I literally could feel myself doing damage to my own body, and I just kept going and going. Oh, that was so loud. It scared me. He's gonna do it again. I'm getting text messages. And my phone is attached to my speaker, so it's extra loud. Because I was listening to Alicia Keys while we were crocheting this hat. Alicia Keys, Keys in A minor, I think is my favorite. No, The Diary of Alicia Keys. And then Keys in A minor, I think is the other one. Alright, so that was row 1 of the brim. Alright. Now, what I want to do here is I want to pretend like there is We're going to add a join here. I dropped my stitch marker because I put it in my mouth and I tried to talk. We're going to add a join here. Okay, so we're going to do a single crochet in that very first stitch where the stitch marker was. Okay, and then we're going to slip stitch and pretend that that's the end of the row. Then we're going to chain 1. That just gives us a place so that when we finish the hat off, there will not be a weird jag there. It will be kind of smoothed out. So now we're going to continue on and we're going to do half double crochets around. I'm going to pick my stitch marker up off the floor. And we're going to pretend that this now is the first stitch of the row. Okay. So when we come back around, we're going to slip stitch to join at that stitch. We're going to half double crochet in the round, all the way around. And you can do as many half double rows as you want. I'm just going to do Poncho. That was so loud. She was in here just fine until Grammy started recording, and now she's like, no, I need to go out right now, ma'am. We're going to half double crochet as many times as you want to make this brim as thick or as thin as you want it, okay? I'm going to do this half double crochet round, and then I'm going to switch to double crochets. I just did the half double crochet to build the base of the brim. And again, you can do as many double crochet rounds as you want to make the brim as deep as you want it to be. When I do a crochet tutorial, I try to include as many tips and tricks in the tutorial so that you can think of ways to change this, because very often I will do a pattern from someone else, and it's not that there's anything wrong with their pattern, but I think of something halfway through and I'm like, oh, this would be so much cool if I added this to the pattern, or if I did this to the pattern. And so I change it up. So what I want from you guys is to not just blindly follow someone else's pattern. I mean, if you are that mindset where you're more analytical than creative, by all means, follow to the T and follow everything that they do. That is okay if that's how your brain works. I'm more of a creative type. So what I like to do is I like to add things, change things up as I go along. And so when I think of something, I try to put that in the video. So in case there's a way that you can change up and make it your own. You know, I want us all to be designers and to create our own little works of artworks of masterworks. Why is my brain not putting that into a sentence? Masterpieces, artworks. There we go. I had to yell at myself. So, do this half double crochet row. And I'm going to switch over to double crochet row when we get to the stitch marker. And I think we're going to call it a day. Well, I'm going to try it on and see. And I think just one more row of the brim will be fine. I really, really loved the way this patterned out because it almost looks argyle in some points. Especially when the black is there. It's given Frankenstein argyle sweater, and I am here for that. I am here for that. We are rounding out the half double crochet row. And remember, when we get to where that stitch marker is, we're going to slip stitch to join. See? And that's why the stitch markers are, so we can see it, because we would have glazed right over that. Slip stitch to join, chain 1, double crochet in that same stitch. You put your stitch marker back. It'll help you keep track of where your stitch is. Then we're just going to double crochet around and slip stitch to join. And we have a completed hat. Now, like I said, if you want your brim thicker than this, do another row of double crochet. Do 2-3 more rows of double crochet. You can make that brim as long as you want it to be. If you want to roll up the rim to win, you can do that. I'm just going to do it this thick because I feel like it's long enough. I added the extra rows, so I did 25 rows of the spiked granny. I feel like it's going to be plenty long enough to go over my ponytail. I could be wrong. My hair is in a ponytail currently, so we're going to test it out. But that's really the end of this tutorial. If you make this hat, I would love to see it. You can email me photos. The best way to show me pictures is the Facebook group. And that way everybody can see how beautiful your work is, but you can email me, that's fine. You can also post your images on Instagram and @Cinnamon Stitches, and it will let me know that you tagged me in it. But yeah, I definitely want to see, and I want to see your variations. I want to see what yarn you used, because this is a really good scrap project. It took maybe half of the skein. It took a little over half of the Urban Chic to make the hat. And depending on what yarn you use, depending on how big the stripes are in the yarn, you're going to have a different looking hat. And so I really am curious to what yarn you're going to use. You could also, if you wanted, if you have a bunch of little tiny scraps, you could put your little scraps together and make your own self-striping yarn. We did show a tutorial on how to make a self-striping cake. You could also do that. This is a really good project for scraps, for striped yarns, for variegated yarns. Because the variegated gives it a very cool argyle effect, which I really, really like that. I really like the way this hat turned out. Or the self-striping, you get the beautiful stripes. Oh, that was loud. I'm so sorry if that made you jump. It made me jump. I'm going to turn my speaker off. My phone is attached to the speaker and it's loud. That tells you how loud I was listening to Alicia Keys and singing. I don't know how to turn notification sounds off. Even if I turn off my ringtone, the notification sounds are loud. And I have turned off notifications for almost everything. It still does that. Alright, we're almost done with this beautiful hat. Thank you for watching this tutorial and joining me while making a hat. I did enjoy spending this time with you. I do look forward to seeing what you create. It didn't take us very long at all to make this hat. Let's see what time it is. Alright, it is about 12:30 my time, and I started this hat after 10, so I'm going to say this hat took me about 2 hours to make total. Now, don't judge I crochet fast. This might take you 4 hours, and that's perfectly okay. Don't rush it, enjoy it, take your time. We're approaching the end of the row where our stitch marker is. And put our last stitch in. Slip stitch to join. Take out our stitch marker. I'm going to say it's long enough. I'm going to cut it. Tie it off. Weave in your end when you get a minute. But for me, I'm just going to pull it into the middle. I'll weave it in later. That is our finished hat. It is beautiful. You already saw it because I'm going to film the intro next, but that is our finished hat. What do you guys think? Very cool. Very cool. So, those are our two hats. As you can see, this one is definitely longer. There you go. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.